Hi, welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Everyday NLP Bites. If you haven't been watching or listening to the earlier podcasts, my name is Florence Madden. I'm an NLP trainer and coach based in Cumbria in the north of England, and I'm also the author of 2 books. The first of these being The Intention Impact Conundrum, which is based on the Personal Effectiveness at Work course that I run several times a year in the Lake District. And the second is Everyday NLP, a book that I co-wrote with my friend and associate, Eleni Sarantanu. I've chosen presuppositions of NLP as my subject for this second season. And the reason for that is twofold. First of all, these presuppositions really are one of the key building blocks of NLP. These are resourceful beliefs and attitudes that can really shift the outcomes that we achieve. And the second reason is that the way in which they're expressed doesn't always reveal everything about the possible benefits of these. And sometimes people find them, not, terribly easy to understand at first glance. So the one that I've chosen to look at today is one that causes probably the most question and debate when I ask people to look at these presuppositions for the first time. And that is that behind every action is an unconscious positive intention. It causes debate because the most frequent thing I hear is, well, that person didn't have a positive intention towards me. And certainly there's a lot of behaviour that goes on around about us, maybe in workplaces, maybe in life generally, that doesn't exactly feel very positive to be on the receiving end of. And when we find ourselves in that situation, it's not unusual to get irritated or angry with that other person or people. And of course, there starts the problem. There's a couple of different ways of looking at this presupposition. So let me start with one, and I'm going to explain it yet again through a story. I was running a course on one occasion for a business, and there was a number of people of management and supervisory level that were going through this program over a number of weeks. And on one occasion, one of the delegates came in and he looked around the training room, which perhaps wasn't what he was expecting. I don't think he had been on many training courses, if any. And certainly the layout of the room was not as he expected. There weren't any tables in front. In fact, there was a circle of chairs and coffee tables in front, a fairly informal layout, which is how I normally train. So just at that glance, I could just see the look on his face, and he looked at me and he said, "What's this then? The Bad Lads Club?" Well, when I meet people for the first time, I think kind of to say hello, something more civil and a greeting would be normally what I would expect. And for sure, the way in which he said it to me, was not jokey or friendly in any which way. If I had reacted to that by saying, something to the effect of, well, there's no need to take that attitude, or, what do you mean? Then we certainly would have gone off completely on the wrong foot. So I'm willing to accept in that moment that behind his action, behind what he said, was an unconscious, and for sure it was unconscious, positive intention. Not necessarily towards me, but in some way that was helping him or satisfying something in him in that moment. Now, as I often say to people, I'm not Mother Teresa either. And do I regard someone greeting me like that as a little bit rude? Well, yes, I do. But to allow myself to take offence at that would have affected my relationship with him and my relationship with the other delegates on that course. So I made a bit of a joke of it, pointed in the direction of the coffee, and we moved on. I'm going to say something here that doesn't come from anywhere in NLP, but I think there is something really important in how we handle ourselves around other people's behaviour. And I'll sum that up in the phrase, get over yourself. People's behaviour is not necessarily about us or anything that we have done. So it doesn't make much sense to start off on the wrong foot with someone by taking what they say personally. There's loads going on in other people's lives that we don't necessarily know about. And something that is the basis of all effective relationships in whatever part of our lives we look is to have some rapport with people. And surely the first step in achieving rapport with someone is not to get into a conflict with them. So that delegate did get his coffee and he sat down, and we just carried on the course the way I would normally run it. And I could see from his body language and his facial expression, as the morning progressed, he was kind of getting a bit to understand what the course was for and how it was going to be, and perhaps getting the measure of me as well. And I recognise that's a really significant thing when someone comes on a course. How is the trainer going to behave? By late morning and into the afternoon, he hadn't just settled, he was really starting to participate in the course. And to my delight, on day 2 of the course, he was one of the first through the door. And he came up to me and saying quite conspiratorially, he said, I've been talking to my wife about this stuff. I said, oh, have you? He said, oh, yeah. Gosh, she could do with coming in this course. And so we both had a laugh. We didn't say any more about what happened the previous morning. We didn't need to. He was in the place that he needed to be, and we were in rapport. I said we don't always know what's going on. I could have a pretty good guess, but what I did find out was that person hadn't received the joining instructions for the course. He'd just been told to be there. He hadn't been explained, or it hadn't been explained to him rather, what the course was about. And, you know, he sometimes, you know, people do think they're being sent on courses as some sort of punishment or in some sort of remedial way. So his behaviour, his statement, inappropriate as it may have seemed at the time, was his defence. It was a shot across my bows because he wanted me to back off. He felt uncomfortable and perhaps even a bit threatened by the situation. So whilst his behaviour is not necessarily appropriate, when you get to know more of what sits behind it, you may say, well, that's understandable. So the other point about this is that not only do we not know what sits behind people's behaviour, if we react to that in a way that we might at the time think is justified, there is every danger that what that person goes away thinking about is our behaviour and not their own. And they won't have learned anything from it. There's another way also of looking at behind every action is an unconscious positive intention. And it's a little more fanciful. Nonetheless, it may be very useful to you. And to think that someone else's behaviour that we find in some way insulting or challenging or difficult, that unconsciously that they are trying to help us or to teach us something. I've been very fortunate in my work life and my life as a trainer to find that not very many people have attempted to give me a lesson in that way. Nonetheless, yeah, I'll have to thank the very few people that have, because, yeah, in some way, they have shaped me as a trainer. They have given my skills a bit of a run out. So, consciously or unconsciously, I'll send them a thanks right now. And I just want to finish with saying that you may be noticing the link here if you watched the first episode, which was about everyone is a different map of the world and the map has not the territory, is that we don't know what's going on in other people's lives and experience. And it is often that is driving their behaviour that we may find, shall we say, difficult. So I'm going to finish on a quote from Napoleon, of all people, who said, "To understand the man," I think he meant the woman as well, "you have to know what was happening in the world when he was 20. So thank you for listening to this podcast. The next one will be coming along in a week's time, and my subject next time round is another presupposition that often draws comment, that people make the best choices available to them at the time. Thank you for listening. You can find out more about the services I offer, the courses I run, and catch up on the other podcasts on my website, which is www.florencemadden.co.uk. Thank you.